Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Cynthia Stevens, and I'll be chairing the hearing this morning. With me today from the Board of Revision is Mr. Robert Fillick in the hearing room and Mr. Bill Moretsky, who is joining us on Zoom. Our assessor is Mr. Nathan Kupfer, also on Zoom, and our hearing secretary is Mr. Stephen Lunn. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of property are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket today. Mr. Lunn, please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Nathan Kupfer.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you speak
Thank
up,
you.
sir?
Yeah, are you able to adjust your microphone at all? Mr. Assessor, it's quite quiet.
How's that?
It's still a little quiet. I'll try raising the volume on my end though. I'll affirm the applicant and then do that. And Mr. Applicant, if you please stand. Please state your full name.
Lindsay McCullough.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Kupfer and Mr. McCubbin. Thank you for joining us this morning. The first item on our docket this morning is 501 St. Mary's Road. And Mr. Kupfer, it appears there is a preliminary issue with this property, but do you want to read it onto the record and then we can discuss that?
File number 22-1396, roll number 0800021250. This is street address 501 St. Mary's Road. Does the sound coming across okay?
You sound a little echoey for some reason.
You can't hear him at all. It's not coming through.
Well, I can hear you, Stephen, or Nathan, but it's a little echoey, like not as loud as it normally is.
Okay.
We've got a soft voice.
So as you mentioned, we do have an issue with compliance for this property. In going over it, it appears they didn't return the income and expense mailer for 2020. I'm not entirely sure why. When I checked the mailing address for this property, it is the actual street address, 501 St. Mary's Road, within our system here. So I am requesting non-compliance. I've attached what we have here for Canada Post documentation at the bottom of my brief. It shows that the documents were delivered here. They give a delivery date of June 10th, but unfortunately no one was available there to sign for them. That's really all the information I have about it. I was hoping to ask the agent as well if he had touched base with his clients there as to why they don't seem to be filling out their income and expense information.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McCubbin, any response to this?
Yes, Madam Chair, our position is that looking at the document on the second last page of the brief, the assessor's brief, you can see there with respect to the signatory name, there's none available there, or it's just not requested. So there's a big question mark here as to whether the owner did receive this request for information. I did not contact the owner specifically in regards to this.
Okay, so you were unaware if they received it or not?
That's correct, but I'm just going by the assessor's evidence here. It says signature unavailable or not requested.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Mr. Philick, do you have any questions regarding the non-cooperation?
No, I don't, but I don't know whether it's my hearing or not, but the gentleman's is not coming through at all here.
Stephen, were you able to boost up the audio there?
I've boosted it as much as I can in the room, to my knowledge.
Okay.
Mr. Assessor, are you able to adjust your mic's location at all?
I've attempted to get as close as possible here.
Okay, you'll just need to speak up if possible.
Okay, Mr. Moretsky, do you have any questions regarding the non-co-op request?
Yes, the original request for information was sent out April 15th, correct?
I don't have that exact date in front of me here, just the delivery date of June 10th. But that is around the time when we'll send out our income and expense information.
It's on page 2. It says request for information year 2020, request letter sent April 15th, 2021.
That's correct then.
Okay, so where is that letter?
Well, that would just be the entire income and expense mailer. I didn't include a copy of it.
Yeah, but the request letter though, where is that?
That's not included with the brief here.
So we don't have evidence that particular letter was sent out then, correct?
Well, our system is showing that the letter was sent and that it was delivered, only that nobody was there or available to sign for it. That's the best information I have in this case.
Okay, but you're saying that letter exists in your system and it was sent?
That's correct.
Okay, no further questions.
I just Mr. Kupfer, on your page, down where you show the tracking number, the Canada Post tracking, is that your second letter? Is that the tracking for the second letter that goes out if you haven't received a response to the first one? Because your first letters that go out don't have a tracking system attached to it like this, do they?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely clear on that, but that would make sense based on the dates here that I'm seeing.
Is it because your second time around you send out a registered letter, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so that's what this tracking appears to be?
That's right.
Okay, and it was delivered, so Canada Post is saying it was left at the property, but no one signed for it, is that correct?
That's right. They listed delivery dates. They don't have it returned to sender or anything like that. So while they weren't available to sign for it, they are showing that it was delivered.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Sorry,
yes.
Madam Chair, if I can interrupt for a second. I'm really having difficulty hearing the assessor.
I can't hear him.
And the board member in the room with me is having problems also. If you can speak a little louder, that would be helpful.
We're going to take a 2-minute recess to fix the audio issue, if that's okay.
Okay, well, while we're recessing, we'll do that, and then the panel will recess after that. Thank you. We'll take a short recess. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We have hopefully fixed the technical issue. And while we were in recess, the panel has deliberated on the non-cooperation request, and we have determined that we are going to deny the request. So Mr. Kupfer, please proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Okay. So like I said, this is 501 St. Mary's Road. This is a commercial office building, all on one story, constructed in 1987. We have a leasable area on file here of 4,676 square feet and a 2023 modeled assessment of $1,130,000 that I'm going to be recommending today. If you turn to page 2 of my brief, you can see we do have a fairly recent sale for the property. This one transacted in 2017. It was an open market sale listed within my notes here. It says 2017 sale appears bona fide. List price was $989,000, and it ended up transacting for $915,000. So page 2 and page 3 provide some photos so you can see the building. This is an OFS property, so I provided our general suburban office rent comparables table here. It provides a pretty wide breadth here of different properties, different sizes. This property is kind of right in the middle at around 4,700 square feet, so I'm not looking to make any significant adjustments based on size one way or the other. The average for our OFS comparables here comes in at around $16 with a median of $15 and a min-max between $10 and $22.50. This property is owner occupied, so we have no rents in place, so we're relying based on these comparables. Page 8 of my brief has our modeled income workup. This is just being modeled as standard C2 finish. Not sure why we have 1 square foot of leasable area broken out separately there, but we're applying a fairly average rental rate here of $16.30, which I feel is appropriate. A vacancy loss of 6%, which again, it's fully owner occupied, but this is just what's modeled and what's based on the market. 3% non-recoverable expenses, and an $8 shortfall. Again, those are standard per our OFS model. And in this case, a capitalization rate of 5.95 is being modeled here. And that's deriving our value using the income approach of $1,130,000. I've included the income value summary as well as our standard capitalization rate tables. Nothing new or exciting there. And then, like I said, it's owner occupied. They didn't fill out their income and expense information, so we have no further information beyond that about the property. So based on the model-driven income workup here, based on the sale price that we know about, I'm going to recommend that this 2023 assessment be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Kupfer, if I can get you to turn your attention to the rent comparable that you provided on page 3, please. What would be your best comparison for this property out of the rent scale? You've got 89 rents provided. So what would be your best comparison?
Well, I don't think it'd be appropriate here to try and pick out one comparable. The point of providing a sample size here is to kind of iron out those extremes one way or the other. This property, as I see it, being a one-story, 1987, fairly average size. For me, this one should fall fairly squarely in the middle of our comparables table, which it does right around that $16 a foot rental rate.
But you will agree with me that your sample size here with respect to the rent you provided runs a gamut from brand new properties to significantly old properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a mix of older and newer properties provided here.
So you're just basing your decision on an average?
I'm saying that what's being modeled here, which is also fairly based on, income and expense information and averages, seems to line up with our average weighted rents here. And seeing as we have no income and expense information, given that it's owner occupied, from where I'm sitting here, this appears to be modeled correctly.
Fair enough. But you would agree with me that we're looking at a site-specific value here, not a model-driven value with respect to the assessed value here today. Would you?
We're looking at a defendable market value for the subject property.
Being site-specific.
Oh, well, when available, I would agree with you, but we don't have site-specific rents for this property.
No, I'm not speaking of the rents with respect to the property. The comparables I'm speaking of. I would like you to narrow it. Can you narrow? Because you've given us quite a few rents here, 89 to be exact. And I'd like you to narrow it down so I can question you on the ones that you feel are appropriate when finding values, site-specific basis for this property. Can you do that for me, please?
No, it's not part of my presentation here to pluck one or two comparables out for you to question. I'm basing this on what I know of the OFS markets and how this I feel like would fall into that market, generally right around the middle.
Okay. You will agree that what is the land to building ratio with respect to the subject property?
I'm showing gross floor area of 4,911 and a land area of 6,347. So the building's taking up about 77% of the land area.
So your land to building ratio is 1.29 to 1, is that correct?
Yep, that would be about correct.
Do you know the land to building ratios of any of these comparables you presented here today?
No, that type of detail is not something we would include in our general comparables list.
Do you think that would have that would make a difference with respect to value, with respect to looking at comparable properties?
Not necessarily, no, because I can't state one way or the other if this has a surplus or less of a building to land ratio than the comparables would.
If I get you to look at page 2 of your brief, where is the parking area in the subject property? Where is the tenant or the owner supposed to park for his clients?
I would suggest parking is either behind the building or along Portage Avenue.
Along which avenue, sorry?
St. Mary's Road, sorry.
Fair enough. So there's not significant on-site parking for the size of the property, is there?
I would say that there is not a surplus of available parking, no.
Mr. Kupfer, do you have the age of your comparisons available? Because you didn't provide them here to us.
No, we felt like the age of the lease there was the more pertinent information to squeeze in. So we have the age of the lease and of course the length, but not the actual age or the effective age of the buildings.
Sorry, I missed that. Can you repeat that, please?
No, we don't have the age or the effective age provided for the comparables list.
So you don't have that. Okay. Those are all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to possibly get a little bit more explanation on your methodology for your rent comparables. You did select quite a few here, almost 90, 89 of them. So did you do this yourself? Did you select these properties?
No, this is actually done by one of the assessors in my section.
Okay. But if you can speak to how he selected these, or he or she selected these properties, would they have tried to match the characteristics to the subject property when selecting a comparable property? Can you speak to that?
I would say the list is specifically designed not to speak to one specific subject property, but rather to provide a breadth of information, a wide breadth of information here. We have leases ranging from as low as, I think 160 square feet all the way up to something around 20,000. We have locations north, west, south, and east provided kind of all over the city. So I feel like the purpose of the OFS rent comparable table here, the large one prepared by the department, is to provide a comprehensive view of that suburban OFS market, and not to speak specifically to any one property. And of course, the wider your sample sizes, the larger your sample sizes, the easier it is to iron out or to remove any anomalies within reporting, that sort of thing. So I think those are the reasons why we've compiled such a large list here for you.
So if I could ask the question maybe this way: if you select a wide range of properties and without trying to match up the characteristics to the subject property, specifically, I guess I'm talking about the age. You took a wide range of properties. Given that the effective age of the subject property is 1987, would not that random sample be by, I guess, just, naturally, would it not be newer than the subject property? Because most buildings there's more newer buildings.
No, that's a great question. So I would say on average here, our OFSs we're looking at between the newer buildings and then back into, the 1960s, 1950s for OFS properties. Like you've said, there's more newer buildings because the old ones tend to get demolished and replaced with newer buildings. But I would say based on this general sample size, based on my knowledge, what we have here for OFS, 1987 would put it fairly square in the middle for age in terms of our general comparables.
Okay, just one more question then on income workup. You have expenses at 3%, expense ratio 3%. That's non-recoverable expenses, correct?
Correct.
Do you have any backup on how that 3% was arrived at?
No, I haven't supplied a separate brief for non-recoverables. This is 3% being applied to every office property that I've handled throughout the board so far. So this is fairly standard and set by the city.
Okay. Thank you very much. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Philick, any questions?
No, I don't. I agree with all the comments that are being made, and I thank the assessor. I can hear him quite clearly now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kupfer, just back to your comparable list, and maybe this is more of a comment than a question, but providing that many comparables makes it difficult for us to wade through to see what, if there's some way to group them by neighborhoods or whatever. It's difficult to try to work, as for panel members, to try to work through this to see what might be in the same neighborhood, what might be the same type of building. So this more of a comment actually than a question. So, because that's a lot of comparables to go through, and it makes it, I feel that it makes it a little more difficult for us to hone in on what we think might be relevant. So I understand your comment about, that this provides a good depth for you to come up with an average, but for us to go through it, it is a little bit daunting. So
I can respect that, and I appreciate the commentary. I do. Certainly, if I had a comparable here at next door on St. Mary's on my list, I would point it out for you, but we don't in this case. So
yeah,
I'll do my best to keep that in mind and to identify any individuals if I can.
Okay, thank you. And I don't have any further questions. So, Mr. McCubbin, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Discuss the location of the property. If I can get you to turn your attention to page 2 of my presentation, please. We have the original age of the property being 1977, Madam Chair, rather than 1987. I'm not sure whether that's an error on the assessor's part, but I did inspect this property visually in the exterior, and it does appear to be a 1970s era in that part of the city with respect to development. So I'll leave it at that. If you get to turn your attention to the photograph on page 6 of the subject property, you will see the front from St. Mary's Road. It's owner occupies, as stated. And the top aerial photograph shows the parking, which is very limited at the rear of the property. There is a garbage bin, a large commercial garbage bin that takes up a fair amount of space there too. And so it has very limited parking. So I'll read page 7 quickly. Subject property is located at 501 St. Mary's Road in the city of Winnipeg. It is best described as a one-story wood frame structure used as retail building. The subject property is located on the west side of St. Mary's Road between Vivian to the north and Essex Avenue to the south. The subject property is a retail/office building and is currently occupied by Biostatic Systems, which sells, rents, and services printers, copiers, etc. Subject site is irregular in shape with a total site size, according to the City of Winnipeg Property and Taxation Department records, of approximately 6,347 square feet, and it is zone C2 commercial. The building covers approximately 77% of the site, and as I've mentioned before, there's a small parking area in the rear of the property. So anyone attending business here will have to find parking off-site. Okay, we both applied the income approach to value to arrive at market value for this property, Madam Chair. So I will get right into that on page 11 of my presentation. The city applies a market rent of $16.30 a square foot. The property is owner occupied. The following market rents are considered. I'm not going to go through these, Madam Chair, because they're quite a bit, not as much as the city has provided, but they're still significant, 1 to 28 comparables with an average of $15.10 and a median of $15 a square foot for this set. The best comparisons would be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 20 and 21, in my view, Madam Chair, with rents ranging from $12.50 to $16.08 a square foot. We apply a rate of $15 per square foot as the best indicator of market value, equating to $70,140 per annum net. Vacancy allowance, the subject property has been applied in market vacancy allowance of 6%, so this is not in contention with the assessors. Shortfall rate, also, Madam Chair, is not in contention at $8 a square foot. However, the non-recoverable expenses are. Altus Group is continuing to apply an allowance of 7% of effective market income in our evaluation of the subject. This allowance is based upon a standard allowance of 2% as a structural reserve allowance and 5% as a stabilized allowance for non-recoverable expenses that arise in the competent management and operation of the property. We would refer to the board to the detailed submission attached to this brief concerning these allowances. Now, I believe you do have that, Madam Chair. I'm not about to go through that. It's provided as an addendum titled Altus Group Limited Non-Recoverable Expense Study 2023-2024 Realty Assessment. I believe you do have that, but this issue has been before the board numerous times. I'm sure you've heard it, and I'm not going to belabor the point unless you wish me to.
Yeah, I think I just will double check with my panel members, but I believe we've all heard the presentation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, yeah, please proceed.
Thank you. With respect to the capitalization rate, Madam Chair, please refer to Altus Group's 2023 capitalization rate study for office properties in the appendix. And I believe you were provided with that also, specifically on page 5 of our brief, of our presentation with respect to capitalization rate. If you go right to the suburban office, you will see the spread of cap rates with respect to various Colliers, CBRE in the first, going from January 16 to Q1 January 18. Colliers, CBRE, and Cushman. If you turn to page 7 of that presentation, you will see that it is our view that off suburban, Altus applied a cap rate of around from 6.25 to 7.5. You can see, I'd like to correct that in my brief. My brief says 6.5 to 7.5%. So on page 13 of my brief, if you can correct that, please. 6.25. The risk due to the income forecast and reflecting the increased supply over demand and projected decreased demand as the hybrid and work from home models begin to erode occupancies and possible result in shorter lease terms. A cap rate of no less than 6.75, in my view, should be applied to the subject property. Turning your attention to page 14, Madam Chair, of my presentation, you'll see the valuation summary. You'll see the leasable area being 4676, the potential income of $70,140, with the application of our rental rates, as I spoke of before, vacancy rate of 6%, Non-recoverable expenses of 7%. Shortfall rate applied at 8%. Sorry, $8 per square foot based on the vacancy. We arrive at an NOI of $59,072. And applying a capitalization rate of $6.75, we arrive at a value of $875,000 rounded. And I would ask the board to reduce the value on this property to $875,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kupfer, any questions?
Yes, please. What can you tell us about this 2017 sale, Howard? I'm showing you're the one who verified it.
Madam Chair, that's not part of my evidence. And I can tell you nothing about it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you did not present on that. Thank you.
I'm showing considerable permit work since the owners took possession in 2017. Can you speak to the condition or what the inside of the property looks like?
Sorry, you're looking at something that you didn't present here to me? Because what did you mention there, please?
I said my notes are showing that there's been considerable permit work done to the property since these current owners have taken possession. So I'm asking you, as the representative for the owners, if you can speak to the condition of the property, what it looks like on the inside, the finishes, that sort of thing.
I'm told that the condition is average for its age. With respect to the permit values or the permits, is it with respect to demising walls, moving walls and creating different office space? I don't have that information here. What does the permit speak to, Mr. Kupfer?
Interior, exteration permits, mechanical permits, electrical permits, signage permits, basically the whole thing that you generally get with a changeover of tenancy.
Did you provide any of that in your evidence? Mr.
Okay,
Kupfer?
yeah, no, since it was not in evidence and since you have answered the question about your knowledge of the quality of the building, I think we can move on from that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have you inspected the building, Mr. McCubbin?
I inspected the exterior of the building, Madam Chair.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Philick, any questions for Mr. McCubbin?
No, I don't.
Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
I do not. No, thank you.
And I do not either. So any requirement for summation, gentlemen?
Madam Chair, I do have rebuttal evidence to present. I did submit it last night with respect.
Okay, all right. Let's just give us a minute to pick it up here then. Thank you.
I'm just distributing it to my
Okay.
panel.
Is that another? Excuse me, is that another?
It's going to be in the same folder. I'll be right with you. So for my panel by Zoom, it will be in the SharePoint, closer to the bottom of the list.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
And Mr. Assessor, did you receive my email? All right, Mr. Assessor, did you receive the email with the rebuttal?
I did.
Okay, does everyone have it?
I have it.
Okay. Okay, Mr. McCubbin, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the rebuttal is titled 2023 Route Assessment City of Winnipeg Border Revision. Multiple roles. It deals with all the properties on this docket, Madam Chair. You can see the corresponding file numbers at the bottom of the front page of the rebuttal evidence. So it applies throughout this docket. If I can turn your attention to page 2, Madam Chair, of the rebuttal evidence. This deals with the city's comparable number 18. So I'll have to refer you to Exhibit 1, the city's brief. Found on page 4 of the city's brief. 301 Nassau. You can see a photograph of that property there. It is a 2-story, unlike that of the subject property. The age is 1988. The city has it at $17.29 a square foot as the net rent. This is a base, a 2014 base year lease, Madam Chair, at $17.29, so that is correct. But we have to remove the expenses, and those expenses per annum are $6,389.59, or $9.21 a square foot. So the resulting net rent for this property is actually $8.08 a square foot. If you turn to page 3, you will see an extract from our database with respect to the tenant involved there. The tenant is Show Therapy, 694 square feet, and the net market rent ascribed to this property is $8.08. You can see the actual lease start and lease end for this cycle, July 20th. The original lease was signed in 2014. With respect to, if we go on to page 5 in the appendix of the rebuttal evidence, Madam Chair, page 5 of the rebuttal evidence shows an aerial photograph of the city's comparison number 11. So that comparison can be found on page 3 of the assessor's brief, 1250 Waverly. That's at $19 a square foot, and that is correct. However, this property is in substantially better condition than the subject property, and as you can see, it has quite a bit more land and parking with respect to the tenants who would occupy this property. So that's at $19 a square foot. If I can turn you to page 6 of the rebuttal evidence, Madam Chair, you can see this is a 2-story structure. And it speaks to the city's comparisons 2, 9, and 82. So this is 600 St. Anne's Road. And you can see it appearing in the city's brief on page 3, comparison number 2, number 9. So number 2, it says $18 a square foot at 643 square feet. Number 9, $19.50 a square foot for a 1,223 square foot area. On page 6 of the assessor's brief, if you can go to comp 82, you can see it appearing there. Rental rate in the building appearing there at 1,393 square feet at $21 and $21 a square foot net rent. This is a far superior property in the subject. Turning your attention to page 7 of my rebuttal brief, Madam Chair. This is the city's comparison number 57. Which can be found on page 5 of the assessor's brief. It's 500 St. James. You can see the relative exterior condition of this property. It's a 2-story building also. It's at $17 a square foot. We're not disputing that. It has an effective age of 2005. The original was built in 1991 and addition in 2014. Madam Chair, I will refer to this rebuttal evidence. Instead of to belabor the point, instead of going through this again for all the properties that we're dealing with, because the rents are similar that the assessor produced, I will just refer to this rebuttal evidence. What I'd like to say with respect to this, you can see how by just throwing 89 comparisons in your brief without looking at the relative condition or how closely it compares to the subject property, your median will be skewed and your average, weighted average, will be skewed. This is a problem. So what I did in my brief, I tried to hone in to specific properties that are more comparable to the subject property. That's my presentation with respect to rebuttal, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cup, for any questions?
I do, thank you. Looking at page 2 of your rebuttal evidence.
Yes.
This is a 1988 building on Nassau. You're saying that the net rent in place is just over $8 a foot?
That is correct, yes.
But you didn't provide a copy of the lease or a breakdown for that?
What I did provide, Madam Chair, on page 3 is an excerpt from the lease. I'm under oath with respect to this information.
But the clients aren't under oath when they submit this information, correct?
Pardon me?
The client isn't under oath when they submit this information.
Are you saying that the client is misrepresenting the truth, Mr. Cupper?
Oh, not at all. I'm saying that mistakes happen all the time when it comes to self-reported income and expense information. So did you review the lease to verify this one single comparable that you pluck that doesn't, I mean, it's well below either of our net rents, our averages for our tables here. This really doesn't fit.
Is that a comment, or are you asking me a question?
I'm asking you to explain why this particular building in 1988, built on Nassau, would fit in as an $8 net rent, given your representation of the OFS market with an average of approximately $15, and my representation of the OFS market at approximately $16. How is this an $8 a foot lease?
Madam Chair, there are a range of square foot rates applied to suburban properties. I'm merely showing the data set of the cities here. I don't believe I have to explain it. This is the city's evidence, Madam Chair, and I'm merely showing that it's incorrect the way they presented it in their brief. I have no comment on his comparisons. he's the one who should be commenting on this comparison that he
Okay,
provided.
yeah, okay, Mr. Kupfer, any further questions?
No, I have no more questions about the rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
Yeah, this one here on Nassau. Yeah, I know you don't want to talk about the city's evidence, but do you know anything about this lease arrangement at all, Mr. McCubbin?
What I know is this is a base year lease at $17.29 per square foot. And the expenses per annum are $6,389.59 or $9.21 per square foot. So we have to take that away from the actual gross rent of $17.29 to arrive at $8.08. Madam Chair, I have not looked at the lease itself. I've just looked at the reported information.
Would you agree that unrecovered expenses is an anomaly? That amount seems that almost 50% of the gross rent. Over 50%, sorry.
It may be an anomaly, but Madam Chair, I have not reviewed the lease to find out exactly why this is. I'm just merely reporting what we have and what was submitted.
Okay, thank you very much. No more questions.
Thank you. Mr. Philick, any questions on the rebuttal?
That's very interesting. No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. And I do not either. So again, I'll ask the question. Any requirement for summation on this property, gentlemen?
No, thank you.
I would like to a brief summation, Madam Chair. With respect to the assessor's brief, he said that he did not prepare a report. So I don't think he is well situated or well suited to speak about the property or the comparisons as it was proven in cross-examination. The assessor merely inserted 89 comparisons on the page and expects the board to look at the average of these widely varying properties, both new and old, 2-story, 3 stories, and 1-story buildings, and make a decision based on the value of the subject property. I believe that's totally wrong. What we have done here, Madam Chair, is I have narrowed down the specific rent that applies to this subject property in my brief, and you can find that at page 11 of my brief. I have shown 28 rents, but I've narrowed it down to 6 rents, which is appropriate in appraisal on a site-specific basis. So I asked the board to accept our valuation of this property with respect to the rents, and also with respect to the capitalization rates and the non-recoverable expenses. The city has not provided anything in regards to their non-recoverable expenses of this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes item 1. Let's move on to item 2 on the docket today, which is 554 St. Mary's Road. And Mr. Kupfer, please proceed when you're ready.
This is file number 22-888, roll number 08000483000. Street address is 554 St. Mary's Road. This is a commercial office building, 2 stories, constructed in 1934 with an effective age of 2005. So we've had quite a bit of work done to it. We have a leasable area on file here of 10,903 square feet. and a 2023 model driven assessment of $2,408,000 that I'll be recommending today. Page 2 of my brief shows an overhead view photo of the property, as well as mentions the last sale all the way back in 2005 there. Page 3 of my brief shows the Google Street View, so you can get a front view photo, a front view of what the building looks like. And again, this is a suburban office building, not far from the last one we discussed. So I've included all the same rent comparables for your reference, no changes there. Page 8 of my brief shows the income value summary. So we have 7,053 square feet spread out over the first and second floor, and then 3,850 square feet of leasable basement space. So this is finished space that we would expect to be leasable. It's got the finishings you would expect in an office. Like all of our OFS properties here, we're using 6% vacancy, again modeled per the markets, despite the fact that the building is fully occupied. 3% expenses, an $8 shortfall, and in this case, a capitalization rate of 6.25%, which is deriving our value of $2,408,000. We do have income and expense information for the property. It's partially owner occupied, so Sherwood Developments here is the owner and partial occupier. Then my notes are showing here WRK Trading Company was renting, I believe, at $15 a foot net. So I believe that those rents, the rent that we do have at least relatively falls in place with what we're modeling here. Like I said, the rest of it is owner occupied. Yeah, that's about all the information I have on this property. And again, I'll be recommending that that assessment be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, any questions?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, I do. Mr. Kupfer, did you prepare this brief?
Yes, I did.
You did. So you're now familiar with the rents that you provided on page 3 and 5 and 7. Did you choose those rents, Mr. Kupfer?
You're referring to the general OFS rent comparables table?
Yes, the slew of rents you provided, the 89 comparables. Did you said you created, or you did this brief. So now are you aware of these rents?
Mr. McCubbin, I think Mr. Kupfer answered that question on the first property on the docket, and he did indicate that this would be the same comparables he'd be providing today, and we did hear his answer to that, so I don't see any need for him to respond to it again. We will take that forward. You can trust us to do that.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. Mr. Kupfer, if I can turn your attention to page 2 of the brief. You provide a sale history of January 6, 2005, registration date for the consideration of $275,000 and sword value $275,000. What can you tell me about that sale?
I don't have any significant notes on the sale, only that, like the last property we discussed, there was significant renovations and permit work done directly afterwards.
So you think this is the sale of the subject property or is this a land sale, or is this a piece of land that's attributable to the subject property? You have no information of the sale. That's what you're telling me.
No, that's not what I said.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Are you aware of any structural problems with this property, Mrs. Kupfer?
I am.
Can I ask you why you didn't attend to it in your brief?
I don't believe I have any new or specific information regarding these problems, other than what's been brought to my attention by Altus, both yourself and a previous agent when I've dealt with this property.
Did you inspect this property, Mr. Cuthbert?
I have not personally inspected this property, no.
Those are all the questions I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Philick. Any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
I just have one regarding the cap, because this is a significantly newer building than the one we saw previously. Would this be, I'm just wondering if this was based on, perhaps, I'm assuming it's model driven. Does the size of the building play into this?
You're correct that it is model driven. I think the biggest factor here is the effective age that we've applied here. So the actual shell, the original building is actually quite old. But like I said, after that sale, the new owners took over, the current owners took over, Sherwood Development. They put quite a bit of money into it. So around that time, we had somebody go out, do the inspection. I believe they adjusted the effective age here to 2005. And I think that's what's helping to drive that cap rate of 6.25%.
My question, maybe wasn't clear. The previous property we saw had a lower cap, but was an older building effective year than this one. So I'm just wondering.
Yes, in that case, yes, I would say size would be a factor in that regard. Being a one-story building generally can come with a bit of less risk as well. Don't have a solid answer for you there, other than, of course, they are model-driven.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions. So, Mr. McCubbin, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We got to turn your attention to page 2 of my presentation, please. As was stated, the original age of this property is 1934. I believe it was once a legion. The current assessed value is $2,408,000. The requested assessment is $1,897,000, Madam Chair. Turning your attention to page 6 of my presentation, Madam Chair, you can see the aerial photograph on the top of that page. The red dot is over the structure itself, the building, and just north of that, to the top of the page, is the parking area. The river is just left of this property on the left-hand side of this photograph, the red river. You can see on the page, the photograph below, the updated building as it stands today. There has been substantial work done to improve this property. However, Madam Chair, there are structural problems that persist with this property. I did inspect this property. I was told that the structural problems was dealt with by the owner 2 years ago, and to underpin the building and to shore up the building so the walls will not move the back of the property. In fact, I inspected it, and since that rectification was done to some degree 2 years ago, the problem came back, and I've noticed cracks in the walls, numerous cracks throughout the rear of the subject property. So it's continuing to move. The ground, the soil is continuing to move. As I said, structural repairs were completed 2 years ago. and there's continuous movement with respect to this property. And this is due to the fact that the riverbank needs to be stabilized, Madam Chair. On inspection, there's a drop off immediately after, just behind the property starts to drop off. And the riverbank is very unstable at this point. It needs remediation. It needs to be stabilized, and this is something that has to go through, I guess, the federal government has jurisdiction over waterways, and you cannot only stabilize this property yourself, you would have to look at an entire group of property along the riverbank so you don't create more of a problem when you stabilize this property. There's significant work to be done to stabilize the riverbank here, and it detracts from the value of the property. It's a continuing concern for the owner of the property. If I can get you to turn to page 7 of my presentation. The subject is the former Royal Canadian Legion building located at the intersection of St. Mary's Road and Araby Avenue and Old St. Hotel, just north of the junction of St. Mary's and St. Anne's Road. The Legion was originally constructed in 1934, and the building underwent substantial renovations in 2015. As a result of these renovations, the assessor appears to have faced a variant age of 1996 on the building. The building has an elevator and a sprinkler. We're advised that the total leasable area of the building is 10,903 square feet, including the basement area of 3,850 square feet. The makeup of the leasable area is as follows. The main floor is 3,412 square feet. The second floor has 3,641 square feet, and the basement itself has 3,850 square feet for a total area of 10,903 square feet. There are 18 surface parking stalls to the north side of the building, as I've showed you that paved area on the aerial photograph. The owner has reported that the riverbank is in fact slowing off, causing the ground underneath to be unstable, as I've stated. They feel they may soon have to vacate their basement unit entirely due to the instability as the floor continues to slope downwards and the walls move. So this is a significant problem for the owner. We both agree that the income approach to value is appropriate to value this property, Madam Chair, so I'll turn your attention to page 11 of my presentation. Potential market income. The city applies a market rent of $15.67 a square foot blended across all floors. That includes the basement, the main, and the second floor. The property is occupied by the owners, companies on the basement floor, and WRK Trading on the main and second levels. The latter's rent is $15 a square foot net. We considered the following rents. I'm not going to go through these rents, but you can view them at your own, you can peruse them on your own time. We have 28 indices here, or comparables. The average is $15.10, and the median is $15. The actual main and upper floor rent at $15 a square foot appear at market, Madam Chair. A lower rate should be applied to the basement, however. The following comparisons are considered for the lower space. On Cordon Avenue, we have a building with an effective age between 1970 and 1975. This is a basement level lease. It's occupied by a restaurant, and the square foot area of 2,300 square feet. January 1st, 2016 is the lease start date, and the end date is December the 31st, 2018. That rented for a net square foot value of $5.97 a square foot in the gross of this lease was $15.61. So there is a significant difference in this, in that. The gross to the net. On King Street, we have a rather older building, built in the 30s, basement area is where this rent is gotten from at $5.93 a square foot. You can see the relative area of 4,481 square feet, with a lease spanning from 2015 to 2020 at net rent of $5.93. And on Gary Street, finally, we have a building built in 1986, basement again, office purposes. It's used for square foot area of $13.30 a square foot. The lease start in September 5th, 2015, and lease end August 20th. It's $7 a square foot. We have an average of the three at $6.30 and a median of $5.97 a square foot. We will apply on the basement area, Madam Chair, a rental rate of $8 for this, for the purposes of a site-specific valuation of this property. That's 3,850 square feet, $8 a square foot. And for WRK trading, we will go with $15 a square foot, because that we feel that represents market value for this portion of the building. So an overall net rent, including the basement, Madam Chair, for all areas would be $12.67 a square foot. Vacancy allowance, I believe we both agree on at $6. 6%. Shortfall rate, we do agree on at $8 per square foot, reflecting the vacant area. We do have the non-recovered expenses at 7%. We're applying. There are 22 parking stalls that are rented out at $60 for a potential rent of $15,840 per annum. The gross parking revenue was $11,520. We have applied a 45% expense ratio to gross potential for a net added parking income of $8,712, which we'll apply in the income summary. The capitalization rate applied will be 6.75%, and the risk due to the income forecast is reflecting the increased supply over demand and projected decreased demand as the hybrid and work from home models begin to erode occupancies and possibly result in shorter lease terms. Further, the riverbank erosion presents a heightened risk to the subject property. So if someone was going to purchase this property, Madam Chair, I think, and all things being equal, you have property exactly like this, without any basement problems, without any structural integrity problems or a slowing riverbank. I think you would find that property would go for a higher value than the subject property. We're nevertheless applying a capitalization rate of 6.75% to the subject property. So going to my income approach summary on page 14, you can see the relative leasable area with the potential net income of $146,195 with a vacancy rate of 6% applied, which results in a reduction of $8,772 to arrive at an effective market income of $137,423. Non-recoverable expenses of 7% applied, a shortfall rate of $7 applied, and other income with respect to parking of $57.60 we arrive at a net operating income of $128.23, applying a capitalization rate of 6.75%. We arrive at a total market value of $1,897,000 rounded, Madam Chair, and I ask the board to reduce the assessed value to $1,897,000. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Kupfer, any questions?
Yes, please. Turning to the income and expense mailer, Mr. McCubbin, would you agree with me that Sherwood Development or Sherwood Holdings, some variation of such, is the owner of the property?
They're the owner of the property, yes.
They indicate on the income and expense mailer under owner occupied and for no for both of the spaces that they're leasing. Do you know why that is?
I'm not sure why that is, Chair. It is owner occupied.
Okay. And then on page 27, it shows partially owner occupied. They have that one checked off.
Yes, so it seems as though that's conflicting information, but I can say that it is owner occupied. The basement area.
Okay. Is the building fully occupied?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell me why we use 6% vacancy and apply a shortfall reduction there when we know that the property is fully occupied if we're doing a site-specific valuation?
Madam Chair, that's applied as a risk in attaining market value to all properties right across the board. If we had a significant vacancy problem, that would have been increased from 6%. We do not apply a 0% vacancy, and neither does the city apply that.
So in this case, you haven't reduced the vacancy to encompass site-specific conditions, correct?
No, but in a site-specific valuation, Mr. Kupfer, you always apply a vacancy rate. Not significance in this case, but a market vacancy rate.
Okay. And in this case, you've agreed with the city that 6%. Okay. And in this case, you've agreed with the city that 6% is appropriate, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. I think you mentioned that repairs were done, riverbank stabilization or some sort of repairs 2 years ago. Can you speak a little bit further to that?
Not riverbank stabilization, Madam Chair. That's not what I was told. Some structural repairs, I believe, I said, was done to the property itself. The riverbank stabilization or destabilization continues, lending itself to more structural movement of the property on my inspection, even after an attempt was made to repair the structural problem back 2 years ago. If I can turn your attention to page 16 of my brief, you can see the relative cracking and movement of the building. And this is specifically in the basement area at the back of the property, Madam Chair. The photographs are on page 16, 17, 18, and 19. And this may have something to do that the property was constructed, that area was constructed, basement area was dug out in 1934. It was original, and it was improved since then with the office space as we see it today. The basement is a slab on grade. And you can see my comments on page 18 with respect to that structural problem. The basement is slab on grade. It was lower and has since been raised. It has a pony wall system bearing on the pad. They use lasers to make everything straight. This work was completed in 2014. Again, I suspect they tried to do some structural repair, as I was told 2 years ago by the owner's representative. Now the basement unit is progressively moving, shifting and cracking as a result of its proximity to the riverbank. The basement is floating away, needs to gut pretty much everything to address the issue, and the cost would be astronomical. They attempted to stabilize the floor. They put in a telepost, which has helped some, but not enough. The floors are held more securely near the piles in the slab. The upper units are secure as the upper building bears on the walls and on the columns. And you can see the sloping floor situation there. You can see the floor walls and the cracking throughout the basement area. And continues on page 21. That addresses the situation in the basement. Hopefully that answers your question.
The photos that you provided here, if I'm getting the dates right, are between 2018 and 2019. And based on your the photos here, you've got one dated July 25th, 2019 at the top of that page, and then the second is from March 8th, 2018.
Right.
But I'm given to understand the repairs were done about 2 years ago. So would these photos not have been taken before the repairs were done?
Yes. There was an attempt again 2 years ago, so these photographs were, but I can attest, I've inspected this property, Madam Chair, and these cracks persist throughout the basement area. I'm on the oath, I'm telling you the truth there. The property is still moving and the cracks persist. So you can take a photograph today, you can take a photograph 6, 7 years ago, it would be essentially the same. The riverbank keeps moving.
What were the approximate costs of the repairs that you've mentioned?
I have no idea, Madam Chair. I don't know if the owner has. They never submit to us any actual costs. I suspect it would be astronomical because you not only have to stabilize a building now, but before you try to stabilize the building, you should try to shore up the riverbank, which is at a huge cost. And I have no idea to answer your question. But it does track market value.
Your page 7 states at the bottom, the owner feels they may soon have to vacate their basement unit entirely due to this instability as the floor continues to slope downward and the walls to move. Have they been given that directive by anyone, or is this the feeling of just the owner?
I think this is the feeling of the owner. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure whether they were directed by the city or some authority. They just feel residing in the basement, this is their feeling. It's the ground underneath is moving, and eventually they may have to vacate the space if they don't shore it up. If they don't prevent the riverbank from moving and the structural problems persist in the basement.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
Yes, I have 3 here. Page 11. Page 11. Sorry, page 12. So the leased area there shows 11,543, correct?
That's correct.
And that is also in your summary on page 14, 11,543, correct?
Correct.
Page 7. Back to page 7. We are advised that the total leasable area of the building is 10,903 square feet, including the basement area of 3,850. which one is correct?
I will go with our leasable area. I believe we should go with what's reported. I know it's slightly over what the city has promoted as the leasable area. The city has promoted 10,903 square feet. Let's see what the owner has reported here. 10,355 on page 27 of the income and expense statement. And just bear with me for a second. I have to add up the lease areas here. Let's then. Oops. Yeah. There are differences here.
You'd like us to stick with the one in the summary?
I would just, can you bear with me for a second, please?
Okay.
I would have to redo my entire income summary if that's the case, if it differs.
Before you go ahead with that one, do you mind if I point out another discrepancy?
Sure.
So that you can maybe do them both at the same time.
Right.
On page 12. Well, the parking. Oh, yes, on the bottom there, parking income. You have applied the gross and the net and the expense to come up with a net added parking revenue of $8,712.
What page are you on, sir?
Or 12. Bottom of page 12, parking income.
Okay, thank you.
8712. Summary on page 14. You have other income of 5,760. I think there's a discrepancy there as well that you might want to have a look at.
That is correct. Would you mind, Madam Chair, if we were to take a break? Sorry, any further questions? I would like to revise and check this income summary.
Yeah, let's get through the rest of the questions, and I was going to recess after that anyway. So and then we can come back to this after the recess. So, Mr. Metzger, any other questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Philick, any questions?
I don't. Thank you.
Okay, my question is related to the structural issues. I know you've testified to the fact that you have seen cracking, etc., but do they have any new engineering reports on the building that indicate that there's work that's required since they did the work several years ago?
Not to my knowledge. That wasn't discussed with them, Madam Chair. All that was discussed and what they told me is that repairs attempt were made 2 years ago, and it has continued to move. It would have been great to have some sort of an estimate of value, but I think it's more than the structure itself, Madam Chair. That's the problem. We're dealing with the riverbank itself. So you can attempt to fix the structural problem and get a value on that, but you're still left with a problem and the riverbank keeps moving.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just wondered if they had any new engineering reports on it, but you're saying no. Okay, thank you. All right, let's take a 10-minute recess. And give everyone a short break. We're not even through 2 properties here, but let's take 10 minutes and that'll give you an opportunity to also rework your numbers, Mr. McCubbin. So we'll be back in 10. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. When we recessed, Mr. McCubbin, you were reworking some of your numbers there. So would you like to report back?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Looking at page 14 of my presentation, Madam Chair, the income summary. I've noticed another error here, but it's not the material with respect to calculation. The error is, it says a shortfall rate of $7. That should be crossed out and should in fact be 8. But the calculation for the shortfall was correct. Applying the other income of $87.12. Oh boy, I noticed. Sorry, Madam Chair. I will do this on the fly here right now. Okay, I'm ready to go, Madam Chair. Okay, so applying the corrected parking income, we arrive at a new NOI of $130,957. $139. $130,957. And applying a cap rate of 6.75 to that net operating income, we now arrive at a value of $1,940,000.
Sorry, can you say that again? What you just cut out for a second?
1,940,000.
40,000. Thank you.
Yeah, 1,940,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kupfer, any questions on that revision?
I have no questions on the revision.
Thank you, Mr. Moretsky. Any questions?
No, so you're sticking with the 11,543 on the summary then?
Yes, sorry, I didn't address that. Yes, I'm sticking with that because that's what was reported. It's slightly higher than what the city is using, but when you look at the income and expense statements on page
that's okay. I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Mr. Philick, any questions?
It adds up to 11,343 square feet.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Philick, any questions? No. Okay, thank you. And I have no questions. So any need for summation on this property?
No, thank you.
I'm sure I believe you have everything in your capable hands or board has. I'm not going to belabor the point. There's significant problems with this property, and I believe it showed in my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Let's move on to the next item, number 3, 1001 St. Mary's Road. And Mr. Kupfer, please proceed when you're ready.
This is file number 22-2155. Rule number 0802115090. Street address is 1001 St. Mary's Road. This is again a commercial office building, 1 story, constructed We have between 1991 and 2009. Leasable area on file of 12,651 square feet. And I have noted here that that does differ from what's being reported currently by the owners. And we have a 2023 modeled assessment of $3,040,000 that'll be recommending at this time. Scrolling to page 2 of my brief, I provided that overhead view of the property. I would note that we have a 2009 sale on record here. I pulled it up here in my notes. It was listed as a multi-role sale, so we don't generally consider those as good determinations for market value. This is a suburban office, like the others we've discussed today. I've made no changes to the comparables table here. Again, we're showing a wide variety, a wide breadth of suburban office spaces, some of them superior, some of them inferior. And I believe that this property fits well with the sample size that we've provided. We have a modeled potential rent here of $215,053 over 12,651 square feet, which equates to an average rate of $16.99. So you could round that off to $17 even. This is a suburban office. All these variables that we're using here, the vacancy, the expenses, and the shortfall at least, are all being done based off of market. So again, there's no changes here, 6%, 3%, and $8 for the shortfall. And in this case, we've got a capitalization rate of 6.25% being applied, which derives that value of $3,040,000 using the income approach. We do have tenants in the building. It's not owner occupied as of the reference date. They filled out their income and expense information online here, so I apologize. The format isn't quite as good as you're used to seeing. There are 2 tenants in the building, or at least there were at the time of our reference period here. Is Public Works and Government Services Canada, and Infrastructure and Transportation with the province of Manitoba. So 2 different government tenants demising the space. You can see on the income and expense summary that I provided there, they're only claiming a leasable area of 11,049. I'm not entirely sure why. And the net operating income being reported is $244,677. The net operating income being modeled is $190,013. So based on what I'm seeing here, we actually appear to be a little bit low in what our model derived operating income is. That's about all the information I have about the property. So at this time, like I said, I'll be recommending that assessment be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCubbin, any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair. So you are, just to turn your attention to page 1 of your brief, the leasable area, you're disagreeing with the owner at 11,049 square feet. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying on the most recent income and expense mailer, what was reported by the owner was 11,049 for the leasable area.
So you're disagreeing with that?
No, I'm simply stating that we have on file here a leasable area of 12,651 square feet, and there appears to be a discrepancy with what the owner has most recently reported.
So you chose not to revise the leasable area?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. To turn your attention to page 2 of your brief, with respect to the sale, did you say this is a multi-role sale?
That's what we had in our notes here. I didn't verify the sale.
Okay, so what other property is included in the sale?
Oh, I didn't. After seeing that it was a multi-role sale and not included, I didn't go further and start pulling up sales documents or further investigate it. It's not something I'm relying on for my evaluation today.
Okay, fair enough. So it's just there for information.
That's correct.
We'll not go through the rents. We know, you know, our stance on that already. Those are all the questions I have here.
Thank you. Mr. Philick, any questions?
I have nothing. It's quite
Miss-
clear.
Thank you. Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
And I do not either. So Mr. McCubbin, please proceed with your presentation.
Thanks, Madam Chair. If I can turn your attention to page 2 of my presentation. Original age of the property is 1991. The leasable area, as reported by the owner, is 11,049 square feet. And that's the area we will be using in our income summary. The current realty value is $3,040,000. We're asking for a reduction to $2,608,000. If I can turn your attention now to page 6 of my brief, you can see the relative photographs in regards to the property. The top photograph is an aerial type photograph. You can see the parking surrounding the side north of the building and to the east of the building. At the back, you can also see a street view at the bottom photograph of the property. The property is located at the corner of St. Mary's Road and Sadler Ave, constructed in 1991. The land area is 18,917 square feet and it's zone C2. The gross leasable area is 12,651 square feet, and the leasable area is, that should be the gross area is 12,651 square feet, and the leasable area reported is 11,049 square feet. The building is multi-tenanted and was occupied by Steinbach Credit Union and Employment Manitoba, but Employment Manitoba has since moved out and it's fully now occupied as of reference date with Steinbach Credit Union. Going to the income approach to value. The city applies a market rent of $16.99 per square foot overall, based on a leasable area of 12,651 square feet. The actual gross rents and resulting net rent in place up to the reference date are as follows. Public Works, they were occupying 6,043 square feet at $16.86 a square foot, and Manitoba Infrastructure at 4,566 square feet at $19.86 a square foot, for an overall net rent per square foot of $18.10. The first tenant vacated at the lease term end April 2021, and the owner Steinbach Credit Union took occupancy of the property. The actual rental here is in line with comparable market rents. And you can see the comparable market rents on page 12. We've gone through this before, Madam Chair. We apply the actual rents as the best indicator of market, equating to a net potential revenue of $199,966 or $18.10 a square foot. That is in fact somewhat higher than what the city has assessed the net leasable area at. Vacancy allowance 6%. We have no problem with that. The shortfall rate of $8 was applied. Also, non-recoverable expenses of 7% was calculated, and we chose a cap rate of no less than 6.5% to the subject property. On page 14, you can see the income valuation. You can see the income stream there. I won't go through it, Madam Chair. Our resulting income valuation is $2,608,000 rounded, and I'm asking the board to reduce it to that value. In the appendix, you will see The sales history of the property, we're not depending on that. This registration date was recorded in 2009. It's a multi-role. And so you can see some information from the assessment department on page 17 with respect to the property itself. I'm not going to go through that. Again, the commercial section details, the property assessment and taxation department on page 18, and on page 19, their income summary, arriving at a value of $3,040,000. And you have the information regarding the income and expense statements on page 21. 22 and 23, and I asked the board to reduce the value of this property, Madam Chair, to $2,608,000. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kupfer, any questions?
Just a couple, thank you. The net operating income reported by the owners, both on your page 21 and at the end of my brief, is $244,677. Is that correct?
Correct. That's reported on page 21 of my brief. Yes.
So I'm given to understand here your workup is more or less a site-specific one. You're trying to use the rents that are in place. So if these are the rents that are in place, how is your net operating income so drastically different from what's been reported? Can you speak to that?
It's using parameters and which will have a reduction in the value and consequently NOI, Madam Chair. This is the reported NOI. We're using a market value, site-specific valuation of this property using the parameters that the city has used, with the exception of the expense side, the non-recoverable expenses of 7%, and there we differ on the cap rate also, Madam Chair. So the resulting value would be different with respect to the NOI. Hopefully that answers your question.
Could you clarify, please, then? Is this a market evaluation or a site-specific evaluation using the site-specific income?
Market evaluation of the property, yes.
A market evaluation. So we're using primarily market numbers here. Okay. And then like the previous properties that we've discussed, then there's no actual vacancy here, and we're using the market vacancy of 6%. That's correct?
Again, we're doing a market valuation using all the methods that is applied when garnering value by the income approach value in an appropriate income summary for a site-specific valuation of this property.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
Yes, just in regards to the, one question in regards to the leasable area. At one location in your presentation, it mentions that the gross leasable area was 12,000 and something, the same as the cities. And you said that's not correct. It's gross area. However, your leasable area is less at 11,049. Are you sure about that number? Are you sure that there is a space that's not being used here for any rent?
Madam Chair, I am merely reporting. I haven't measured the space. I expect this to be correct. The total leasable area of 11,049 square feet is reported on the IME. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I just want, I guess, to make sure that it's not, that number isn't what is presently leased, but is actual leasable area.
This is what is actually leasable. It's my
leasable or leased?
leasable area of the property itself.
Okay, so that's the way the owner reported it then? They understood that it was leasable area?
Leasable area, yeah.
All right.
It says total leasable area on page 21 is 11,049 square feet.
Okay,
So that's the total leasable, not the lease.
so your number for the rent per square foot, I believe works out to $18.10, correct?
That is correct.
Are you aware that that is higher than the city's?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you're going to stick with that number, correct?
Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Philick. Any questions?
I do, thank you. I'm just trying to get back to the street ad. On page 14. I was just wondering when it says management and other 7% is something that I haven't seen before.
That's for non-recoverable expenses.
And so that's it just use.
It's lumped in, yeah. It should say non-recoverable expenses.
That's why I
Yeah.
was wondering what this one, why
Yeah.
this was different.
Yeah, it should say non-recoverable expenses.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Philick. And my questions have been answered. So any requirement for summation, gentlemen?
None from me, thank you.
Mr. McCubbin?
I don't believe you need a summation. Chair, I think you have it well in hand.
Okay.
Please, and continue.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move on to item number, just a second here, number 4 on the agenda, which is 1046 St. Mary's Road. And Mr. Kupfer, please proceed when you're ready.
This is file number 22-1444, roll number 0800-367-1500. Street address is 1046 St. Mary's Road. This is a commercial office property, 2 stories, constructed in 1998, with a leasable area of 4,548 square feet, and a 2023 modeled assessment using the income approach of $1,190,000 that we'll be recommending today. Page 2 of my brief shows the overhead view of the building. It's on the corner there. We do have a fairly recent sale on file for the property here, listed as January 11th, 2018. See my notes here. So the sale I'm showing here was not an arm's length transaction. Without getting too far into it here, there was a note pointing to a shotgun clause and a buy-sell agreement between the purchaser and the tenant. So my understanding here is that the former tenant ended up purchasing this property and is now the current owner. So this is now owner occupied, whereas it wasn't previously. However, the sale price is not an arm's length sale price, so we won't be relying on that consideration or sworn value. Page 3 of my brief shows the Google Street View. You can see it's currently occupied as a real estate office. It's a suburban office, like all the other properties we've discussed today. I've made no changes, no additions or subtractions to our comparables list here. The building is demised, or at least we have it demised here as one full space, 4,548 square feet, being modeled at $17.02 a foot. Again, everything else is being derived based on market parameters here: 6% vacancy, 3% expenses, an $8 shortfall. And in this case, a fairly low capitalization rate of 5.75% is being used to derive that value of $1,190,000. I've included the income and expense information available here towards the end of my brief, which includes the income statement and the rent roll with lease charges here. So Century 21, as I stated, is the tenant. They're on a fairly long lease term here until, like I said, my notes indicate that somebody from Century 21 purchased the property in 2018. So the property is no longer at an arm's length lease. We're relying on our market leases. Based on what I know about the property, our model workup seems to be a fairly reasonable one. I'm going to recommend that 2023 assessment be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I can turn your attention to page 2 of your brief, please. Where is parking on this property, Mr. Cuthbert?
From what I can see, the parking appears to be fairly limited. Maybe some spots in behind the building. Other than that, you'd be looking at street parking.
And with respect to the sale, you call this a shotgun clause sale?
That's what I indicated in the notes that I'd reviewed. Of course, I wasn't the one who verified the sale in 2018, but I'm given to understand that it was purchased by who was at the time a tenant. So the current owner is affiliated with the Century 21, this real estate group. So the any current lease in place would not be arm's length.
So you believe the current, because they purchased it, the current lease and sale is not arm's length in the reference period?
I know that it is not.
With respect to the rents applied, again, your explanation is the same for this as the other properties. I'm not going to belabor the point. You just chose an average rent, or you chose a model-driven rent, and you don't specify a specific rent in your comparables that would compare to subject property. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the $17.02 is model-driven, like you said, and I haven't made any changes to the general suburban office comparables table here.
Right, so you haven't chosen comparable rents out of that table?
Correct.
Okay. Those are all the questions.
Thank you. Mr. Fillick, any questions for Mr. Kupfer?
I do not, thank you.
Mr. Moretsky?
Yes, you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, cap rate fairly low at, was it 5 point, sorry, at 6 point, sorry, where am I here? At 5.75, correct?
That's correct.
Why did you say low?
I've noticed. I've never built the model myself, but I've noticed a trend here with smaller buildings that are generally under one tenant, one premise ID here. They tend to be getting cap rates in at around the 6% or even a bit lower. This appears to be one of them.
Okay, so you don't believe it should be that low then?
Well, it's a newer building. It's well located. It's smaller, so I can understand where where the model's coming from in that regard. But even still, our capitalization rate evidence doesn't have a lot of support in that 5.75% range.
All right. Now, just a couple of quick questions and answers, if possible, too, just for my own education here. Shotgun sale, what is that?
My understanding is there would have been an agreement somewhere within the lease where if the owner wanted to sell the property, the tenants would have the option or the right to purchase it by matching any given or agreed upon price or market value that potentially they would have been offered by another party. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you. And my question was about the cap rate, and you have answered that. So, Mr. McGovern, please proceed with your presentation.
Madam Chair. Turning your attention to page 2 of the brief, Madam Chair. I believe we do agree on the leasable area in this one, 4584 square feet. It's a 2-story suburban office, originally constructed in 1998. Site area is 3845 square feet, and as you've heard, there's limited parking behind the subject property. Our requested assessment is $804,000 for reference year of April 1st, 2021. Going to page 6. The assessor did show the briefs of the subject property. Did show the photographs of the subject property. I'd like to point out page 6 on the aerial photograph. If you look at the property right behind it, that was purchased also for parking, because the parking behind this row number is not sufficient. So if you look at there is a residential lot that was purchased for parking some time ago. You can see in front of the building at the bottom photograph of on page 6. Getting to the income approach to value, the actual arm's length rent in place is for 55,771.3 per month, equating to $14.70 a square foot. The rent expired in June 2021, but was renewed at the same rate. The actual rent does appear in line with market comparables. We apply a rate of $14.70 as a indicator of market value. Vacancy allowance, we do not disagree with that, Madam Chair. Shortfall rate of $8 was applied to the vacant space, 6% of the vacant space, 6% of the leasable area. Non-recoverable expenses applied at 7%. Capitalization rates. Please refer to Altus Group 2023 capitalization rate study for office properties in the appendix. Based on the study, Class S office should be applied a cap rate of between 6.5% and 7.5%. I believe that should be 6.25%. That's what it says in the study. To 7.5%. The risk due to income forecast is reflecting the increased supply and over demand and projected decreased demand as the hybrid of work from home models begin to erode occupancies and possibly result in shorter lease terms. Further, an additional property is required to meet parking requirements, Madam Chair, with respect to this property of 1 stall per 75 square feet. Rather than deducting the value of the additional parcel, we reflect this value in an increased capitalization rate. So rather than deducting the value at the back of the property, the residential property that was purchased, Madam Chair, I showed you that's used for parking for this property, we will increase the capitalization rate. And so we're applying a cap rate of no less than 7%. To this property. So in my income summary on page 13, you will see the relative calculation. With the rents applied, we arrive at a net operating income of $56,262 with a 7% capitalization applied rather than deducting the value of the parking lot behind, which I believe will erode the value somewhat even more than the $804,000 that we presented here. Nevertheless, $56,262 NOI applied capitalization rate of 7%. We arrive at value, Madam Chair, of $804,000, and we ask for the value to be reduced to that amount. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kupfer, any questions?
Just a couple quick ones, thank you. Mr. McCubbin, did you have care and control of this submission? Is this your brief?
Can you say that again, please?
Did you have care and control of this submission? Is this your brief?
This is my brief. I've adopted this as my brief, Madam Chair.
Can you help me explain why you included the 2019 income and expense information instead of the 2020 income and expense information?
Because that was applicable in terms of arriving or looking at a value that was appropriate for this property. As you said, it's now owner occupied.
So you've relied on a rent of $14.70 per foot, is that correct?
We believe that represents market, correct?
That's based on the lease here.
Overall, sorry.
Okay. That is the lease amount that was in place, right?
Correct.
And that lease ran from 2006 until 2021, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I do provide information in regards to applicable suburban offices that support that amount with respect to site-specific value, Madam Chair.
Okay. And once again here, the site-specific vacancy is 0 and we're applying 6%, correct?
Yes, the same explanation as I've explained in the last block, the properties with respect to the application of the income summary for a site-specific valuation of this property.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Mr. Philick, any questions?
I do not have any, thank you.
And I do not either. So any need for summation, gentlemen?
No, thank you.
Madam Chair, in this case, I believe you have all in your paper and the information that you need.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5 on the agenda this morning, which is 520 Academy Road. So, Mr. Kupfer, please proceed when you're ready.
Okay, this is file number 22-1819, roll number 1207-0047-000. Street address is 520 Academy Road. This is a one-story commercial office building constructed in 1987. We have no effective age being applied. The leasable area of 3,124 square feet, and a 2023 modeled assessment using the income approach of $811,000 that I'll be recommending today. Page 2 of my brief shows the location of the subject along Academy there, and notes that there are no sales for the subject. Page 3 of my brief has the Google Street View, so you can get an idea of what the building looks like. Once again, this is a suburban office building. I've included the same general suburban office rents for your reference. Page 8 of my brief has the income stream, the income breakdown here. So you'll note that C2, our standard finish, is being applied to the main floor area. It's 2,260 square feet at $18.46 for a total of $41,720 of potential rent. And then the C6 space you see on file here is basement space. That's 864 square feet, being modeled at $12.83 for a potential rent of $11,085. So there's two ways of looking at this, because I know the agent is going to make issue of our square footage. The potential rent, $52,805. You could average over the entire space, which would be 3,124 square feet, and you'd be looking at an average rent of the main floor and the basement of $16.90. Or you could look at the building the way that it's currently being advertised, using the potential rent of $52,805 over the smaller leasable area, $2,260, and you'd be looking at an average rent of $23.37. As this is a suburban office, we have all of our standard rates being applied here, 6% vacancy, 3% expenses, an $8 shortfall, and a capitalization rate of 5.75%, which is deriving that value of $811,000 using the income approach. Scrolling down through the brief, I've included the income and expense information as submitted. My understanding was the tenant in place here for the 2020 mailer vacated just prior to the reference date. I believe this was Remax, and at the time of the reference date, they were actually advertising it for rent. I have here in my notes. So that's the information that I have on the property. And at this time, like I said, I'll be recommending that model value be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGubbin, any questions?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, page 8. If I can get you to turn your attention to page 8 of your presentation, Mr. Kupfer. Specifically, C6, storage/mezzanine, you're now saying that that's basement. That's intended to be basement.
That's correct.
Okay. In your presentation of rent comparables, are there any basement rents provided here?
No, I haven't broken out any basement rents.
So you've provided no basement rents. Have you inspected this property?
No, I haven't inspected this property.
No. Okay. What's your opinion on basic rents, basement rents in general? What would apply? When would you apply at $12.83 per square foot for basement space?
I would expect the space to be finished and generally usable. We have codes for substandard, which would be lower than this. We're not calling it standard space, which would be higher than this. This is kind of an in-between modeling code, is my understanding, in terms of producing a value.
And you say this property is currently vacant and for lease?
My understanding was at the time of the reference date it was.
Okay, do you know if it has leased? If it's currently occupied?
I'm not 100% sure if it's occupied at this point, no.
Okay, and just quickly to touch on the asking, you mentioned an asking rate. Is that a net asking rate? I believe you referenced $23.39 a square foot. Is that asking? And is that gross?
No, sorry, you must have misheard me. That would be the modeled average rate over 2,260 square feet. Potential rent of $52,805 divided by 2,260. So I'm saying if we're saying that the space is only 2,260 square feet and we're not applying separate square footage for the basement, then that potential rent of $52,805 over 2,260 works out to $23 and change of net rent.
Gotcha. Thanks. Those are all the questions I have, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Fillick, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
So, yes, I do. So $23 a square foot, if you look at it based on the 2260, and then just on its own there is 1846. I'm not sure why you're looking at it those two ways. Can you just briefly explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two different arguments you hear go both ways here with basement space about whether it whether it has value, whether it has no value, whether it has some value in between. Our position is that, you know, basement space, whether it's storage space, finished, unfinished, or anywhere in between, is going to command a value. It's just a matter of determining whereabouts that should be. So there's two ways to look at this. The building is either a 3,124 square foot building, including all of the space, including the basement, in which case that rental rate on average, I think I calculated out to be about $17. Or if you say it's only 2,260 square feet of leasable area, but also there's this basement space that's a free bonus, a free add-in, but we're not quantifying it in terms of value, we would expect them to then ask for a higher rental rate for that smaller 2,260 square feet of rental space because they're getting a free add-in, a free addition to that.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I just thank you. I just so you're saying 2260, but when I look on page, well, on the INE, page 15, I think, of your brief, the owner's reporting 2350. So I'm just wondering where the 2260 came from.
You're referring to the leasable area?
It says total leasable area 2350 on the INE on page 15.
That's right, and we have 3124 all inclusive of the basement, and then we're calling it 2260 for the main floor space.
So it's different than what, so your 2260 is a little lower than what the owner has reported here.
It is a little bit lower, and you know, like a few different properties we've seen today, owners will often measure or report their spaces slightly different, not always consistent.
Okay, so you're going with you're going with what you have in your files and on the model. Okay,
absolutely.
That's all I got. Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Okay, the property is the leasable area we have at 3,124 square feet, which includes the basement, Madam Chair, and that will be used to arrive at our income summary. Our income summary leasable area is 3236. There are a number of different areas here, but they're closely related. The 23.
Sorry, Mr. McCullum, can you just repeat that again? You said 3124 to start with, and then did you just change that?
Yes, 3236 square feet. You will see that in our income summary.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That includes the basement area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The original age of the property is 1987. The site area is 7148 square feet. We're asking for a reduction, Madam Chair, from $811,000 to $539,000 in total, for reference year value of April the 1st, 2021, or reference date value, sorry. If you turn to page 6 of my presentation, you can see the aerial photograph of the subject property on top, the first photograph, and below you can see the building itself. It's right by abutting the train tracks. Okay, page 7 of my brief. The property is located at the corner of Academy Road and Renfrew Street. The subject is improved with a one-story office building constructed in 1987. The land area is 7148 square feet and it's zoned C1 commercial. The plan area is 2248 square feet, and there is approximately 988 square feet of unfinished basement. So we differ with respect to that in terms of the assessment department. They're showing an area of 864. We're showing 988. It's fairly close, but it's unfinished basement. The total leasable area with the basement is 3124 square feet. And the leasable area for marketing purposes mainly is the main floor only at 2248 square feet. The property was previously 100% leased by Remax, who vacated in December of 2020. The property is 100% vacant at the reference date. In the income approach analysis, on page 11 of my report, Madam Chair, the city applies a market rent of $52,805 or $16.90 per square foot to all areas, and that includes the unfinished area of the basement. The actual rent in place up until 2020 was $54,240 gross. The owner cites the leasable area as the main floor only at 2,350 square feet. Deducting the 2020 expenses of $20,927, the net rent previously paid was $33,312, or $14.18 per square foot based on the plan area only. The actual net rent appears in line with the comparables, which are listed below, Madam Chair. It's not far off. On page 12, the best comparisons are 1, 4, 5, 6, 10, and 11, which have an average net rent of $16.99 a square foot, Madam Chair. So it's somewhat higher than the overall average that's shown on page 11 of the rents I provided. The property is listed for lease at $25 per square foot base, based on 2,260 square feet inclusive of basement. The owner is not optimistic the rent will be attained, and the property remains vacant as of April 1st, 2021. We apply $18 a square foot as the best indicator of market value applied to the main floor only. So it's higher than the average rents that I've shown on the previous page, Madam Chair. For the lower level unfinished space, a much lower rate, if any, would be applied. The following finished office basement rents are considered. And remember, these are finished to some extent. You can see on Corden and King and their relative, I believe I've been through this in a previous property presentation here today, so I'm not going to go through it. You're well aware of these rents. The average is $6.30 and the median is $5.97. We will be applying a rate of $3 for the unfinished space, Madam Chair. We feel that that's reasonable. It's unfinished space. It's not finished, as the rents we provided here are finished at a median of $5.97 and an average of $6.30 for the basement. As I've said previously, we're applying a rental rate of $18 a square foot for 2,248 square feet of leasable main floor area. We arrive at a total gross rent of $43,428 a square foot, or when applied throughout the building of 3,236 square feet, the rent ascribed to that $43,428 is $13.42 overall. Based on the main floor only, if you look at the main floor only, Madam Chair, and you apply that potential market income, the rent applied would be $19.32 per square foot. The subject property has been applied a market vacancy rate of 6%. There hasn't been what we would say chronic vacancy as yet in this property, so we're applying a market vacancy rate of 6%. Shortfall rate of $8 per square foot with respect to the vacant area. A non-recoverable expense of 7% of the effective market income is applied in our valuation. And with respect to the capitalization rate, we're applying a capitalization rate of 6.75%. You can have a look at the Altus Group 2023 capitalization rate study for properties in the appendix provided. And we feel an appropriate capitalization rate for this property currently is 6.75%. So when you look at my income summary, Madam Chair, on page 15 of my brief, you will see with the application of the rents, the vacancy allowance, and the that shouldn't be management and other. It should in fact be non-recoverable expense, or in brackets management and other. So that's the non-recoverable expense, 7%, shortfall rate of $8 square foot to the vacant, applied to the vacant area. We arrive at an NOI of $36,411. Applying a capitalization rate of 6.75%, we arrive at a current value $539,000. We're asking that the assessed value, Madam Chair, be reduced from $811,000 to $559,000. And just to go through the rest of my appendix here, fairly standard. We have the income and expense statements on page 25, 26, 27. Number of them. On page 47, you'll see the advertisement with respect to the space for lease. Common taxes, $10.04 projected, and the lease rate asking is $25. And again, this is just an asking rate. Thanks very much, Madam Chair. That's my question.
Thank you. Mr. Kupfer, any questions?
Yes, just a few. Did you get a chance to inspect the property, Mr. McCubbin?
With respect to this property, Madam Chair, I inspected the exterior, but I had a good idea of what the interior looked like.
Okay, so you've not been in the basement space then, correct?
Pardon me?
You've not been in the basement space, correct?
No, I'm not, but it is unfinished.
Are any of the photos that you provided of the basement space?
I do not have photos.
So who's providing this characterization that the basement is, that the lower level is unfinished?
The owner is providing that information, Madam Chair.
And based on unfinished, what does the owner mean by that? Like, is it literally just poured concrete walls, concrete floors?
Correct. Some mechanical down there.
And there are zero finishings in this basement.
Pardon me?
There are zero finishings in this basement.
That's what I understand.
Has anybody from Altus inspected the space?
I don't have an answer to that question. I suspect at some point in time they must have, Madam Chair, but I have not inspected, as I said, the basement.
And you'd confirm that the asking rent as of or around the reference date, I don't see a date on this, would have been for $25 a foot, not including the basement, correct?
Yes. The owner is being very hopeful.
You had asked me during my presentation about whether the rent was achieved or whether the building ended up being rented. Are you aware? Is there a tenant in the building now?
I believe when I inspected the building, Madam Chair, there seemed to be some action going on in the building. I don't have an answer for that, truthfully, whether it's a legitimate lease right now, and if it was leased, it would be post-reference, Madam Chair. We're not looking at an increased vacancy allowance for this property at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
Yeah, just the location of this property, is it kind of closer to Route 90, sort of in that direction? Are you aware?
Yes, it's somewhat away from Route 90. There's a lot of commercial activity on Academy, but it sort of tapers off as you get towards the tracks, so to speak. So it's not in the thick of things with respect to this portion of Academy for commercial purposes. It's at the end, and then there's a break, and then it continues further north on Academy after their residential properties. So it's broken up. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I guess I should just preface that question. That area on Academy, actually, probably from Kenniston all the way maybe to where the basic residential area of River Heights starts, is pretty high-end commercial area. Would you agree with that?
It's high-end,
like it's high-end boutiques and things like that in that particular.
It's very desirable, yes, I would agree with that. Yes, for commercial uses, yes, retail uses for sure. Yeah, office, I would think maybe not as much. It's more of a retail slant in that area. Retail.
You only have one comparison, I think, that's on Academy in that area, or maybe, yeah, really, there's just one, right? At $18.
Yeah.
That's kind of where you lean to when you came up with your $18 for the main floor?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, and if that basement was finished, what would it be worth per square foot? Same amount as the main floor?
It depends on the type of finish you would have in the basement. It would be worth considerably more. It would be worth more than what we're applying here in our income summary. As finished area. But it all depends on the finish and what it's used for. It could be finished for storage. It could be finished for a number of uses other than office.
But as far as you know, it is just bare storage, bare concrete.
Madam Chair, it's bare storage.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Philick, any questions?
I think my question was just asked. I was going to ask about the basement, and I understand now it's just storage and not.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to confirm something in terms of the asking price for the lease of the building. I had thought I heard somebody say that the $25 included the basement, and then I thought I heard Mr. McCubbin, you say that it did not include the basement. So can you just clarify that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if you look at page 47 of my presentation, please.
Yep.
47.
Yeah, I'm there. Yep, thanks.
You will see the lease rate, the asking rate is $25. It's an asking rate, right? But then you look at the bullet above, the third to last bullet says bonus of 988 square feet. So it's a bonus to have the basement there.
Okay, so whoever, but I'm just trying to clarify, whoever leases the building gets the basement as well, correct? Gets use of the basement as well.
It seems as though they're basing the $25 square foot on the lease rate for the main area, which they usually generally do, and the throw-in is the basement.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I just
clarified that. Figure out something less. It would be somewhat less if you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I had. Okay. Thank you. Any requirement for summation on this one, gentlemen?
Not from my end, Madam Chair. I think you have to vote now.
Nope.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is item number 611 Academy Road. Just before we begin, Mr. McCubbin, I noticed that it looked as if you were appealing liability and classification as well on this property. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, just confirming that then. All right. Mr. Kupfer, please proceed when you're ready.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes?
we're not contesting the value here, so it's not quantum. It's a matter of liability only.
Okay, because I did look at that and I saw assessed value was checked off, so you are not appealing the value.
We're not contesting the value at this point in time. We're just contesting the classification of the property, Madam Chair. We would like it exempt from school taxes, and I've had a conversation with Mr. Kupfer on Friday in regards to this situation, and he was in agreement with the exemption. It was just a matter of how we arrive at that value for exemption, and I'm not sure whether he has, if he's agreed with us or not. We can expedite this matter if he,
Okay. All right, well, let's get Mr. Kupfer to read it onto the roll and then he can advise us of that. So Mr. Kupfer, please read this onto the record and we can discuss it.
This is file number 22-1697, roll number 1207-181-5400. The street address is 611 Academy Road, and the owner is Jags Development Ltd. This is commercial office property. The building is 2 stories. Rather, there's 2 different buildings on the site, I should say. One of them constructed in 1918 and one of them constructed in 1965, so quite a variation there. The total leasable area is 27,373 square feet, and we have a 2023 modeled assessment of $4,390,000, which I'm given to understand is not being challenged here by Altus. However, one of the tenants who's occupying space actually in both of the buildings, is the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. So Altus has applied to have part of the property be classified as school tax exempt. And as Mr. McCoven has stated, upon our review, we're in agreement that the tenant would qualify for that school tax exemption. Under the applied for subsection, pulling it up here on his page. And Mr. McCoven's page 12 here, he's got the application. Under section 23(1)(e), is owned or is held in trust and is used by a charitable organization primarily for the purpose of giving relief or assistance to aged, indigent, or sick persons to a maximum exemption of 0.1 hectares. So this is a 2-part test. The first is the charitable organization part. The second part is the giving relief part. This is a charitable organization, as confirmed by Mr. McCoven, and based on our interpretation of the aged, indigent, or sick persons, we believe that this would also meet that criteria. So we have 2 check marks there. We're in agreement that the tenant should get the 40S classification. The only hiccup with this property is that I believe it was Mr. Reimer who did this calculation for Altus. He didn't do an unreasonable job here. What he did was a straight line square footage calculation of the entire site, both buildings included. He said the center is using 45.9% of the total area between both buildings. Took that to be took 45.9% of the value, and then is asking for that to be class code 40S, school tax exempt. The only issue with this is it wouldn't be consistent with how the city would determine this classification split. Generally speaking, the split is done based on value, not just based on square footage. So in some cases, those will work out to be the same thing. So in the example of one property with one building, that's 5,000 square feet. It's all on one story. It all rents for the same amount, say $12 a square foot across the entire center. If you were to calculate 45% of that area and divide it out by value, it would work out to the same thing. But that's not the case with this property. Like I said, we have 1918, I believe it's a former residential school building towards the back, and then a much nicer, newer suburban office property in front that you can see. The Center for Child Protection is occupying the total area of the 1918 building, which would justifiably rent for a lower amount, and then a portion of the suburban office building, the OFS. So what we've done is effectively split the income stream here and come up with different rents for the two spaces, derive the value using those different rental amounts, keeping all other parameters the same, including the capitalization rate, the expenses, and the shortfall, and then come to a split for classification based on the valuation of the property, which, like I said, would be consistent with how we would do other properties, other splits in this regard. It's very important that we stay consistent. So I do have that number for you here. The 40S portion should be allocated as $1,789,000, which equates to 40.75% out of the total value of $4,390,000. And with that, I am subject and open to any questions. Thank you.
Okay, sir, can I just get you to read those numbers to us again then? So the 40S portion of the building is $1,789,000. And then what did you say right after that? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Which equates to 40.75% of the total value, which is $4,390,000, which we are in agreement with.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, Mr. McCubbin, any comments and or questions in regard to what Mr. Kupfer has just recommended?
Thanks, Madam Chair. With respect to our calculation of the split, if you can turn your attention to page 2 of the brief, please, my brief.
Okay, thank you.
You see, we're applying in relation to what Mr. Kupfer said in regards to the split, the 40S split. He's applying $1,789,000. We're applying $2,016,000, and he's correct. It's based on a physical split of the building. I did inspect this building for purposes of this hearing, Madam Chair, and I agree with the split we have in regards to the physical split of the building. I inspected both areas of the property, the building on the front. If you look at the property presented, I guess, it's presented on page 2 of this brief. There's an office portion, a 2-story office portion. It's on page 2 of the brief. It's gray in color. And then the former residential school building is immediately behind that, where it sort of borders and abuts right to the property line. So I've inspected both of that, and I'm agreeing with the physical split based on the condition that I've seen, Madam Chair. The tenant who warrants the 40S has space also in the building in front. So they're occupying some space in front and space at the back in the old original building, which has obviously been retrofitted to office space since its original use. So I'm thankful that Mr. Kupfer is agreeing with the necessity to have this split class code, but we disagree on the amount that should be applied to the school portion.
Okay, thank you. We've got a little bit out of order here, but this is a unique situation. So I'm just going to ask Mr. Kupfer, do you have any comments or questions based on what Mr. McCubbin has just presented?
I don't think I have any questions. Like I said, his math checks out for doing a basic square footage calculation, assuming that all square feet rent for the same space, but that is not consistent with how the city calculates these class and liability splits. It is, in my opinion, very important that we stay consistent in this regard. because if we allow different agents, different owners to come up with their own percentages based on their own methodologies, their own calculations, we will in effect be inequitably assessing and inequitably taxing these owners. So I would insist that the number that we've calculated be applied. Other than that, I'm in agreement with the points made by Mr. McGovern.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Moretsky, do you have any question for either Mr. McCubbin or Mr. Kupfer?
I do not, thank you.
Mr. Fillick, do you have any questions?
You have the assessor's presentation. When I go to page 14, the financial statements, and there at the top, I'm just curious, it says 611 Gordon Avenue, and we're talking 611 Academy Road. And I'm just a little wondering what was the reason for the different address.
No rhyme or reason there. It's just the wrong income and expense information that got attached.
Big pardon?
It's the wrong income and expense information that was attached. There's no rhyme or reason for that. It's just a mistake.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions. I'm sorry, Mr. McCubbin, were you going to? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a sort of redirect with respect to the comments Mr. Kupfer said.
Okay.
When assigning the exempt portion, I do believe that the city does not have total authority. When assigning percentage, it should be something that's debatable and worked out between parties based on appraisal of the property itself and based on the condition of the property. So the city cannot ultimately decide a specific split and apply it throughout in all its application. This is something that has to be debated and sorted out. So I don't agree with that statement, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Any need for any further summary, gentlemen?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, one more thing.
Yes.
I had submitted a rebuttal brief for this property, but it's just the breakdown of my calculation for the 40S portion.
Okay.
So it can be included as supplemental evidence if you guys need any reference material for that.
Okay, thank you. And Stephen, we have that in our.
I will add it now.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I would like to have a copy of that too, please, Madam Chair.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Any need to? Can we move on? Are you okay, Mr. McCubbin? If we move on.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. I just wanted to double check since there was another piece of evidence there. I just want to double check with you. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's move on to the final item on the docket this morning at 621 Academy Road. And Mr. Kupfer, please proceed when you're ready.
So this is file number 22-1758, roll number 1209-780-6790. Street address is 621 Academy Road. So this is the adjacent property to the one we had just discussed. And it has the same ownership group. Jags Development Ltd. Purchased the property. I don't have a sale date included here because the roll number was changed. I believe it was 2018. It's a commercial office property, all on one story, constructed in 1985, and then I believe there was an addition added in 2011 there. A leasable area of 34,862 square feet. And we have a land area of 107,897 square feet, or about 2.5 acres. And we have a 2023 modeled assessment of $5,403,000, which is actually derived based off of the land value, not based off of an income summary. Page 2 of my brief shows the overhead view. Again, you can see the property that we had just discussed. This is the property on the left, of course. Page 3 of my brief is taken from Academy there, so you can see the excess parking there in the front. Provided some general land sale comparables for this property and noted that the subject assessment works out to $50.08 per square foot based on that 2.5 acre size. We have a few sales in the area, including Academy and Corden. The trouble with these sales, of course, is that they are fairly dated and they're also quite a bit smaller. So our lot sizes here are kind of around 10,000 square feet in that area. And we're generating price per square foot from about $52 to $78 for those Academy and Corden sales. The larger parcels you see here are quite a bit further south down into the developing areas such as Bridgewater, Central, Tuxedo Industrial. And those ones are going for anywhere from $25 to about $40 a foot. Again, no time adjustments. They're fairly dated and the land areas are before you as well as the zoning. When I reviewed the income workup for this property, it didn't appear to be coming out correctly, so I didn't bother to include it at all. It was actually producing a value that was considerably lower than both the 2020 and 2018 values, so I want to do a data review on that before going forward. I've included the property sale questionnaire here on page 6 of my brief, showing the purchaser here, Jags Development 2018. Purchased the property for $5.6 million. They've noted $1.5 million of machinery equipment and another $200,000 in business accounts, which gives you a rough approximation here using the sale price of about $3.9 million. I've included the income and expense information here. The property was mostly vacant at the time of the income and expense mailer. I would note that prior to the sale here, I believe it was an RCMP forensics lab, so it would have been previously majorly or fully occupied, but hasn't been since. And the owner makes note on point 18 of the sales questionnaire here that they do intend to subdivide all or part of the property, so this does appear to be a development project. Like I mentioned, he also owns the property next door. So that's what we know about the property thus far. In reviewing the office characteristics, the land sales, I would actually concede that I think the income approach is probably the stronger approach. In valuing this property, I've supplied you with an income value workup. And included it as my rebuttal evidence, as I saw that Mr. McCubbin was pointing out in his brief that he also thought the income approach was the better way to go about this. So I have actually a recommendation for you here today. I believe it is consistent with all three methods of valuation here. So the total 2023 assessment that I'm recommending for this property is $4,475,000. So that equates to $41.47 per square foot. So I believe it is consistent with the sales that we've seen within the area for land and is seriously taking into account that land size discrepancy and adjusting downwards. I believe it's relatively consistent with the sale price and the sales information that we have for the property. And as you'll see in my rebuttal brief as well, I believe it's consistent with the income approach, income value workup that I've supplied. So that's my recommendation for the property, 4475. And with that, I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm just going to back up to the fact that you've provided a recommendation here. So, Mr. McCubbin, what are your thoughts on the $4,475,000?
We're not willing to accept that, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Comment with respect to how that was arrived at. This is being filed in rebuttal evidence. I see I don't have the rebuttal evidence in front of me. This is something that should have been done at the outset of the presentation of the brief, the city's position on the property. When I look at, I will question Mr. Kupfer in regards to this valuation of this property, but a valuation now coming this late in rebuttal is not accepted, and it shouldn't be accepted, Madam Chair.
Well, I would agree that the that a new workup is not rebuttal. So I will agree with you on that. So we will go with his Mr. Kupfer's verbal recommendation on the property based on what he described. So please proceed, and if you're not accepting it, please proceed with your questions.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Kupfer, did you inspect this property?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay, you stated it's a former forensic lab of the RCMP.
That's what is noted on the sales questionnaire that we received.
Did you review the field sheets with respect to this property in regards to the construction of the building?
No.
No? So you have no idea what the interior looks like in terms of, is it rentable space currently?
No, that's not correct.
Pardon me?
That's not correct.
What's not correct?
Your statement.
What part of my statement is not correct?
You said, I have no idea what the inside of the space looks like.
Right.
And that's not correct.
Okay, what does the inside of the space look like, Mr. Kupfer?
It's a fairly large space. Would you like to be more specific?
A fairly large space?
The building? Yes.
Okay, that's okay. It's 34,862 square feet. What else can you tell me about the interior space, Mr. Kupfer?
I can tell you that it is primarily on one floor with some basement space. Based on the photos that I've viewed, I would say the finishings are fairly simple, and there's likely still some fixtures in place here, fixtures and equipment from the RCMP lab based on the photos that I've reviewed.
So would you say, and you're basing your information now on my brief, which is not presented right now, but I understand that you've had a look at my brief. So you're basing your information and your knowledge, it's based on the photographs that I have in my presentation. Is that correct?
No, we had some photos actually on the drive here that I reviewed yesterday, but I can't say if those were provided by Altus or if those were taken by a different member of the staff.
Okay, fair enough. So do you think that the condition of the space as it stands today is leasable for office purposes?
Yes.
Viewing your photograph?
Yes.
You do, but you don't provide those photographs to the board or to me.
Correct. I haven't included interior photographs for any of the briefs that have been discussed today.
And you haven't provided an income summary with respect to this property, have you?
As I stated.
But you're saying it's valued by the on land value only. But can I turn? So you're telling this board that this property was valued at $5,403,000 using a land rate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you sure there's no income summary that derives that value of $5,403,000, Mr. Kupfer?
No, I didn't state that.
Have you read my brief?
I'm going through it right now. I can tell you
Okay,
that.
what's the point you're getting at, Mr. McCubbin?
I'm making the point that I don't say that this property, and I will present my brief. I'm just asking Mr. Kupfer his information with regards to where this assessed value has come from. I'll just show the board where this assessed value was derived. It was not from a basic land value as promoted in the brief.
Well, so what you're saying, he's not presenting the truth here, or what are you saying?
Well, I'm not saying that he's not. I don't want to go that far. I think he's maybe a little confused, Madam Chair, with respect to where.
Okay, that's not a fair thing to say. I think he's indicated that he's done this on a land value basis,
Okay.
and I understand that you're going to present probably differently, but if this is what he's presented, so that's what we should be asking
Okay,
about.
Can I ask then? Did he create this brief, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Inappropriate. Pardon me.
Yes, I did.
You created this brief in its entirety. Okay. Thank you very much. Those are all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Philick. Any questions?
No, I don't.
Mr. Moretsky, any questions?
So when you assess, say, a property on land, so it's just the land only, of course. So you're ignoring the value of the building, correct?
Yeah, so the way that works is there will be a cost land value generated by the model and an income stream generated by the model. And the model will generally defer to the higher value, saying that that's the highest and best use of the land. In this case, that's what it appears to have done, with a land valuation of $5,403,000.
And that's based on the comparables with that you provided on page 3.
Yeah, admittedly, there's not a clear apples to apples comparable here. This would be work out to, like I state, $50.08 a foot, which is based on my analysis on the higher end, which is why I made the recommendation that I did to revise that value to $41.47, which is consistent and supported by all 3 methods of valuation.
Okay, so on the 4th column of the comparables there, it says vacant commercial, correct?
That's correct.
So all these other comparables do not have buildings on them, correct?
That's correct.
So does the workup consider the that there is a building on there and that it would have to be removed in order to compare apples to apples?
Very basic. Wouldn't consider and factor in demo costs like that. It also wouldn't factor in things like how the building can still generate residual income, for example, while things are being applied for and stuff like that. There's no time adjustment that's done to them. This is just base level land sale data, the closest and most applicable that we have.
So it's largely theoretical. Would you agree with that? Because there is a building on there, right? That's usable.
That's correct, yes.
Well, no further questions.
And I have no further questions. So, Mr. McGovern, please proceed with your presentation.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The property, as you heard, is the former forensic lab, which is now located in, for the RCMP, which is now located, I'm told, in Edmonton. It was a purpose-built structure. It was constructed in 1985. The basement area is about half or a little less than half of the leasable leasable area of the property. We're requesting a value of $2,683,000, Madam Chair. And just so while it's fresh in our mind, if I can turn your attention to page, with respect to the income summary, that where the city got their number from, Madam Chair. If I could turn your attention to page 4 of my addenda. It has the city's logo on top there. You can see what's presented here is exactly the same by the income summary approach to value, the income approach to value of $5,403,000, which is exactly what the property is assessed at. That's what I was getting at, Madam Chair. This property was done by the income approach to value by the city. It was not done as bare land, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'm lost here. I don't know where this addenda is. Can somebody help me out here?
Okay, after page 37 of my brief, Madam Chair, you will see page 3 numbered twice with a city logo on top. Okay, and you turn the next page is page 4 with a heading commercial sections detail. And then again, page 4, you will see a city logo on top, and you can see the income summary there, Madam Chair. Are you with me?
Yeah, I am. Are both the panel members okay?
Yeah, I'm there, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. So that is where the value, how the value is arrived at. And we do not, that's the income summary that the city should have presented in their brief, Madam Chair. Nevertheless, I know we're pushed for time here, Madam Chair. I will be quick. But this is a significant issue nonetheless. Photographs of the property, Madam Chair, you can see on page, starting on page 6 of my presentation, the aerial photograph is the top photograph. Below is the access to the office area, walkway to the office area. And on page 7, there is a ramp going down to the basement. For forensic purposes, the RCMP, I believe, used this to look at vehicles. There's a crane situated right inside the store down there. So while I'm at it, explaining the basement also, there's an area where they use to test ballistics in the basement, firing off weapons, etc., to see the pattern. I suspect from the barrel of a gun. It's a very unique property. There are labs throughout. I can show you. And turn your attention to page 19. This is coming into the building. In the appendix, Madam Chair, coming into the building on the main floor. That's what it looks like currently. Page 20 shows some office area that may or may not be usable. Some of that is usable. There's water damage throughout the building, Madam Chair. On page 22, those photographs are actually from the main floor. These are like pods that are constructed in the building itself. And you'll see the handles on the pods there. So it's a self-contained pod on page 22, the first photograph there. And that's actually, one of them is a washroom. Washrooms are situated within that pod and totally sealed off. Doors are very heavy. Page 23 shows some lab fixtures that were left in the building, Madam Chair. 24 shows some general office area used for general offices. The picture below is water damage, as you can see. This page 25 is components with respect to forensics that has to be ripped out of the property. Shelving on page 26 that can be easily removed. These are removed on page 27. Also on the top photograph is these covered spaces. And then you can see the mechanical room in the basement on page 27, the bottom photograph. Again, you can see page 28, this building is chock full of fixtures that have to be removed. And that's where you get that increased value fixture equipment reported in the sale price of the property. Page 30 shows some damage, water damage. Page 31. Page 31, the bottom photograph, Madam Chair, is the ramp I showed you, the ramp going down into the building. And this is the interior. You can't see the crane, but there's a crane located right behind this overhead door, and this is where I guess they would perform forensics on vehicles. Page 32, this is the basement area. You can see a hoist there. Page 33 shows the ramp going down into the building, and page 35 shows the exterior of the building. Yeah. Very site-specific purpose-built building, Madam Chair. I'll quickly go to my income summary or property description on page 8. This subject is suburban office building located at 621 Academy Road, just east of St. James Bridge. I think I will let you read that. This is important information, Madam Chair, on page 8 for speed up the hearing. But it is important. I would ask you and the board, the panel members, to read that page. Income approach to value. The city applies a market rent from what we can gather of $12.34 per square foot blended across the main and the basement. There's only one rent in place. SML Design is on a month-to-month basis at $7.20 per square foot on the main floor. And the best comparison for this property would be comparison number 36. Based on the location, the best comparisons would be 1, 4, 5, 6, 10, and 11, which have an average net rent of $60.99. However, all are much smaller in size and require downward adjustment for economies of scale. My income summary, Madam Chair, begins on page 14, where we describe, you can see the rents there with respect to basement. I presented before. Valuation of the area, you can see on page 14 also with respect to the overall area at $10.31 per square foot is applicable for this type of property in its current condition. We're asking that the board provide a 25% vacancy allowance. This property, Madam Chair, it's been essentially vacant since the RCMP moved out of the building. It has to be majorly retrofitted and gutted or demolished to be of any use. And that would figure into the land value. If you're going to value this by the land, as land value, you would have to take in what it would cost. You would have to take into account what it costs to demolish the property to make it a usable piece of land, Madam Chair. Non-recoverable expenses of 7. You can look at our income statements, Madam Chair, and I ask you to look at it in detail on page 17. We're pressed for time here again. With all the edits provided and vacancy rate of 25%, we arrive at a value of $2,683,000 rounded, and we feel that that's a reasonable value. Based on the market value of April 1st, 2021, and we're asking for a reduction from $5,403,000 to $2,683,000. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kupfer. Any questions?
Yes, just regarding the vacancy here, Mr. McCubbin, am I correct in saying this is the only property where you're making an adjustment to the vacancy percentage?
Yes, of the properties we've dealt with today, yes, because of its, the chronic vacancy of the property, yes.
So in this case, you want to apply a site-specific vacancy that is an increase in the vacancy percentage and a decrease to the total value for this property only.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Philick, any questions?
Just understand that this property was purchased in 2018 for $5.6 million. And according to your page 8, and in fact it included about $1,500,000 worth of equipment. But nothing has been done since that purchase.
Nothing has been done. The equipment is not usable to the current owner. It is actually a detriment to the use of the property. It has to be ripped out at a considerable
How
cost.
did they determine the value of $5.6 million at that time? What use?
I'm not sure. I didn't ask the owner that question.
No, just wondering whether that justifies the property's worth more than $2.6 million. But the fact that they paid $5.6 million.
Right, but the report, the owner may be looking at, and I'm just surmising here, the owner may be looking at selling some of that equipment that was recorded in the sale of 1.5. It's very valuable equipment if you know how to disassemble it.
You would looking at the property now, that would bring it down to $4.1 million. Taking the $1.5 million out in that $5.6 million, so it's a separate item.
Yes.
And I was just wondering whether the $4.1 million is pretty close to $4.475 that the assessor.
That is close, but that's not correct in my view, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moretsky.
When you did your analysis and workup for this property with the client, did you come up with a value of the bare land itself?
No, I did not, Madam Chair.
Okay. And the value of the demolition?
No, I did not.
Okay, where I'm going with these questions is it seems like the land in the building or the land only, hypothetically, is worth quite a bit more than your value that you have using the income approach. You don't need to comment on that, but that's kind of what it appears here. So I guess I would be wondering if that's what the owner is currently using this for is highest and best use for this property.
Well, I guess it was bought in spec, I can only think. But with comparing this to vacant land, Madam Chair, if you do not remove and considerably bring this property up to snuff in terms of having it ready to be leased, it's a considerable detriment having the building on the land. The land itself, if it was clean and clear of all buildings and a flat surface, I would agree that it may be worth more than what we're promoting. But right now, there's a situation where we have this special purpose building on site that's a detriment to the overall value of the property with a substantial amount of equipment in it that has to be removed. And
okay, but what would be your comment on whether this is the highest and best use of the property?
The highest and best use of the property, and that's a good question, Madam Chair. I would say it's in continuance of its current use. It's being used partially right now for office space. At some point in time, it's a major structure. At some point in time, a decision I suspect would have to be made to remove the equipment. What cost, I don't know, and to see if you can get any salvageable benefit out of that. and to convert it to office space. I do not know the cost of demolition of this specific property. I would suspect it would be quite costly because of the type of building it is and the construction I've seen. There are a lot of load-bearing walls in the interior of the property.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, and I have no additional questions. So any need for summation on this property from either of you?
Very quickly, I just wanted to reinforce that per the sales questionnaire, the owner themselves indicate that they intend to subdivide this property. They own the adjacent property, which is now approximately 3 contiguous acres. In my opinion, this is clearly a development property, not with the highest and best use as office space, as Mr. McCubbin has indicated. And just briefly to mention that the rebuttal brief that I did submit is an income workup consistent with Mr. McCubbin's income workup, the only difference being I have not adjusted the vacancy to this 25% that he's used. So that's all the information I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCubbin.
Madam Chair, I do believe that the property can be used for office purposes. It's currently being used for office purposes. I can only state what I've seen upon inspection of this property. Even if it was looked at as vacant land, there's substantial amount of money has to be outlaid to bring this property to some sort of buildable site. When you're comparing the land values that Mr. Kupfer has relayed in his brief on page 3, those are all clear and free of any encumbrance with respect to buildings. Those are ready to be built on. This property is not. This owner was motivated, no doubt, Madam Chair, because he owns a property right next door. So he was motivated. I suspect he paid above market price for this property just so that he could secure the site. It's a motivated sale.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, both very much for your presentations and for joining us this morning. And we have heard all the items on today's docket. So this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.